War, an inevitable part of human history, has not only claimed countless lives but also wreaked havoc on our environment. The environmental consequences of war are as old as war itself, from the ancient civilizations that raised entire forests for their war machines, to the scorched earth policies of more recent conflicts. Over the centuries, war has caused significant changes in the ecosystem, loss of biodiversity, and pollution, altering the course of natural history. Let's take a step back in time. Picture the world before the advent of the Industrial Revolution. Wars were fought with swords and shields, and while they were devastating in their own right, their environmental footprint was relatively small. But as humanity advanced, so did our methods of warfare. With the dawn of the Industrial Age, wars became larger, more destructive, and far-reaching in their environmental impact. World War I brought this reality into sharp focus. The introduction of chemical warfare and the widespread use of artillery shells not only resulted in an unimaginable loss of life, but also scarred the landscape, leading to long-term ecological damage. This was a turning point in history where the environmental cost of war became a significant part of the equation. As we moved into World War II, the scale and scope of environmental destruction escalated. The advent of nuclear technology and the development of weapons of mass destruction marked a new era of environmental devastation. The environmental impact of these wars was felt globally, from the desolate wastelands left by nuclear testing to the deforestation caused by the demand for resources. In the years that followed, wars in Korea, Vietnam, and the Middle East further underscored the environmental toll of conflict. The use of chemical agents like Agent Orange and napalm resulted in widespread deforestation and loss of biodiversity, while the relentless bombing campaigns left a lasting legacy of pollution and ecological disruption. As we delve into the specifics, we will see a clear pattern of escalating environmental damage with each subsequent conflict. The story of war and its environmental impact is a sobering reminder of the unintended consequences of our actions, a narrative we cannot afford to ignore as we stare down the barrel of future conflicts. World War I marked the advent of advanced military technology, which resulted in unprecedented environmental damage. Let's delve into the environmental impacts of this monumental conflict. At the heart of World War I was the introduction of chemical warfare. This was a game changer in terms of military strategy, and unfortunately, it came with devastating effects on the environment. The most notorious of these chemicals was mustard gas, a potent and lethal substance that was used extensively on the battlefields of Europe. When released, this gas not only caused insufferable harm to the soldiers exposed, but it also seeped into the soil, contaminating it for many years. But the environmental impact of World War I wasn't limited to the contamination of soil. The vast network of trenches that crisscrossed Europe also had a profound effect on the environment. These trenches disrupted the natural drainage of the land, leading to waterlogged fields and the destruction of ecosystems. The constant bombardments also led to deforestation and habitat loss on a grand scale. And let's not forget about the effects on wildlife. Many birds and animals were driven from their natural habitats by the noise and devastation of the war. Some species, unable to adapt to these rapid changes, were pushed to the brink of extinction. The human toll of World War I is well documented, but the environmental cost is often overlooked. In the aftermath of the war, large swaths of land were rendered uninhabitable due to chemical contamination and physical destruction. The recovery of these areas has been a slow and painstaking process, and even a century later, some of these scars remain visible. The environmental scars of World War I still linger in many parts of Europe, a stark reminder of the consequences of war. As we move forward, it's crucial to remember the lessons of the past and strive for solutions that prevent such widespread environmental destruction in the future. The devastation of World War II went beyond the massive loss of lives and infrastructure. The environment, too, paid a hefty price. As the world's nations were embroiled in a conflict of unprecedented scale, environmental conservation was the least of their concerns. The war's impact on the environment was profound and far-reaching, with effects that are still evident today. Take, for instance, the use of nuclear weapons. The dropping of atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945 marked a sinister milestone in warfare. The immediate destruction was staggering, but the long-term environmental effects were just as devastating. The intense heat generated by the nuclear explosions caused a phenomenon known as a nuclear winter. The massive amounts of dust and soot thrown into the atmosphere blocked sunlight, causing temperatures to plummet. This sudden change disrupted ecosystems, leading to the death of numerous species and the alteration of habitats. The radiation fallout from the bombings also had severe ecological consequences. Radioactive particles seeped into the soil, contaminating plants and water sources. This led to bioaccumulation and biomagnification, where radiation levels increased up the food chain, affecting a wide range of organisms. Even today, over 70 years later, the effects of this radiation can still be detected. Certain areas remain uninhabitable due to high radiation levels, and genetic mutations in both humans and wildlife are a stark reminder of the bombing's environmental legacy. World War II also saw the extensive use of incendiary bombs, which caused widespread forest fires. These fires not only destroyed vast tracts of woodland, but also led to significant changes in local climates and the loss of biodiversity. The lingering effects of radiation in Hiroshima and Nagasaki are grim reminders of our ability to inflict lasting harm on the environment. The impact of World War II on the environment underscores the need for us to consider the environmental implications of our actions even in times of conflict. It's a lesson we must remember as we strive to protect and preserve our planet for future generations. The Korean and Vietnamese wars took environmental destruction to a new level with the introduction of Agent Orange and napalm. These wars, spanning from the early 50s to the mid-70s, saw the use of chemical agents on an unprecedented scale. Napalm, a highly flammable sticky jelly used in incendiary bombs and flamethrowers, was first put to use by the US during the Korean War. Its destructive power was not limited to immediate casualties. It burned down forests, turning them into barren lands, and its residues seeped into the soil, contaminating it for years. The Vietnamese War, however, brought a new player to the stage, Agent Orange. This herbicide was part of the US's strategy to deprive the enemy of cover by defoliating the forests. Over a period of 10 years, from 1961 to 1971, more than 20 million gallons of this deadly chemical cocktail were sprayed across Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. The immediate consequence was the loss of forest cover on a massive scale, but the aftermath was even more devastating. Agent Orange contained dioxin, one of the most toxic compounds known to man. It seeped into the soil and water systems, leading to a long-term contamination that still affects these regions today. It has caused severe health problems for millions of people, including cancers and birth defects, and has decimated local biodiversity. Even now, the soil in many areas remains poisoned by this chemical, producing food that is unsafe for consumption. The loss of biodiversity has disrupted local ecosystems, leading to imbalances that are difficult to rectify. The environmental legacy of these wars is a grim testament to the destructive potential of chemical warfare. It serves as a stark reminder that the scars of war go beyond the battlefield, reaching deep into the heart of our planet, affecting not only our present but also threatening our future. The devastation caused by Agent Orange and napalm is a somber lesson in the irreversible damage that can be inflicted on our environment in the name of conflict. The wars in the Middle East have not only caused human suffering but also inflicted severe damage to the region's environment. The region, known as the world's largest oil producer, has seen its precious resource become a weapon of war, leading to catastrophic environmental consequences. One of the most prominent environmental impacts of the Middle East wars has been oil spills. These spills have caused extensive damage to marine and coastal ecosystems, as well as the wildlife that depends on these habitats for survival. The massive oil spill during the Gulf War, considered one of the largest in history, released approximately 11 million barrels of oil into the Persian Gulf, creating a devastating environmental disaster. Burning oil wells have also been a significant issue. The flames from these wells release harmful pollutants into the atmosphere, contributing to air pollution and accelerating climate change. During the Gulf War, more than 700 oil wells were set on fire, producing vast plumes of smoke that blocked out the sun and coated the land with a layer of soot. This not only affected air quality but also had severe repercussions on the local climate and agriculture. The pollution of water sources is another grave concern. Wartime activities have led to the contamination of water bodies with oil and other harmful substances, making them unfit for human use and destroying aquatic life. The lack of clean water has compounded the hardships faced by the local population, while the loss of biodiversity has upset the delicate balance of these ecosystems. The environmental impact of these wars extends beyond the immediate vicinity of the conflicts. Pollutants carried by winds and water currents have spread the damage far and wide, affecting regions far removed from the actual war zones. The environmental aftermath of these conflicts continues to affect the region's ecosystem and its inhabitants. The Middle East, once a region of abundant natural wealth, now grapples with the challenges of environmental restoration and conservation. As we move forward, it's crucial to remember that the cost of war extends beyond human lives and political boundaries. It includes the profound impact on our planet's health and its ability to sustain life. The ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia is not only a geopolitical issue but also an environmental crisis. As the world watches the geopolitical struggle unfold, the environment bears the brunt of this conflict. One of the most concerning aspects is the potential threat to nuclear facilities. Ukraine is home to 15 nuclear reactors, including the infamous Chernobyl, a symbolic reminder of the catastrophic potential of nuclear accidents. Any damage to these facilities, either intentional or collateral, could set off a disaster on the scale of Chernobyl or Fukushima, with far-reaching and long-lasting impacts on the environment and public health. Aside from nuclear risks, the conflict also exacerbates deforestation and habitat destruction. The need for resources and infrastructure for military operations has led to the extensive clearing of forests, impacting biodiversity and contributing to climate change. The Donbas region, a biodiversity hotspot, has seen a significant decline in wildlife populations due to habitat destruction and pollution. Furthermore, the increased use of heavy machinery and artillery leads to soil degradation and pollution. The toxic chemicals and heavy metals used in warfare seep into the earth, contaminating the soil and groundwater, affecting both human health and the ecosystem for decades to come. The conflict has also led to an increase in greenhouse gas emissions. Military operations are energy-intensive and rely heavily on fossil fuels. The burning of these fuels releases vast amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, contributing to climate change. The environmental fallout of this conflict also has a human dimension. The destruction of natural resources and pollution of the environment lead to food and water shortages, displacement, and health issues. These environmental consequences exacerbate the ongoing humanitarian crisis, creating a vicious cycle of conflict and environmental degradation. The environmental stakes of this conflict are high, and the potential for long-term environmental harm is real. As we navigate through these tumultuous times, it's critical to remember that wars are not just fought on battlefields, but also in our forests, our rivers, and our skies. The scars they leave on the environment are profound and long-lasting, a potent reminder of the interconnectedness of human actions and the natural world. From World War I to the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, the environmental impact of wars is undeniable. As we journeyed through the last century, we've witnessed the escalating toll wars have taken on our natural world. World War I gave us a taste of the destructive power of modern warfare, with the use of chemical weapons poisoning the land and water. The advent of World War II saw an increase in this devastation, as new technologies like the atomic bomb not only decimated cities but also left a lasting radiation imprint on the environment. The Korean and Vietnamese wars introduced us to the horrors of napalm and Agent Orange, chemicals that ravaged the landscape and continue to affect the health of populations and ecosystems decades later. The Middle East conflicts, with their oil fires and depleted uranium munitions, have further compounded the environmental damage, turning fertile lands into barren wastelands. And today the conflict between Ukraine and Russia is adding to the historical burden, with the destruction of infrastructure leading to pollution of water sources and soil. Each of these conflicts, in their own way, has contributed to a legacy of environmental damage that continues to affect us today. But it's not just about the past. The environmental consequences of these wars also serve as a stark warning for the future. As military technologies advance, the potential for environmental damage increases. This is a cycle that we must strive to break. Wars are not just human tragedies, they are also environmental disasters. The destruction of habitats, the pollution of air and water, the decimation of wildlife. These are costs that are borne by all life on Earth. As we reflect on these impacts, it becomes clear that the environmental cost of war is a burden that we and future generations can ill afford.